A fake cop came to arrest my brother without realizing that I am the police chief of this district. When I found out that Karen was behind everything, I couldn't let it slide. Did she really think she could so easily deceive the law? Welcome to Karen Karma Channel. Leave a comment below letting us know where you're watching from. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, casting long streaks of light across the wooden table. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, rising in gentle swirls of steam. I slowly rotated the coffee cup in my hand, savoring a rare moment of calm, one that wasn't consumed by the relentless pace of city life. As the police chief, I was accustomed to tense mornings, dawn phone calls reporting crimes, high-speed chases through crowded streets. But today, at least for now, I allowed myself to relax. Suddenly, the phone on my desk vibrated, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. I glanced at the screen. Michael, my brother. A chilling premonition ran down my spine. Michael rarely called this early unless something was seriously wrong. I picked up the call. Daniel. My brother's voice was almost unrecognizable, thick with panic. The police are at my house. They say I'm under investigation for corruption. My grip on the coffee cup tightened, nearly spilling it over the table. Corruption? Impossible. I knew Michael. He worked hard, always put honor and ethics above all else. Besides, as the police chief, I would know if there were any investigations involving my own brother. I lowered my voice, forcing myself to stay calm. What? Who are they? I don't know. Michael panted, chaos echoing in the background. But I can hear Karen standing beside them, laughing like she just won a huge bet. Karen. Just hearing that name made my blood boil. Karen, the most troublesome neighbor in the area. A nosy busybody who thrived on spreading baseless rumors and had made life difficult for my brother on more than one occasion. But this time, she wasn't just throwing out spiteful words. She was playing a much bigger game. My vision darkened. Something was very, very wrong. I shot up from my chair, the wooden legs scraping against the floor with a sharp screech. My coffee sat abandoned on the table, steam still rising from the surface, but I no longer cared. Stay calm, Michael. Don't say anything else to them until I get there. My voice dropped to a steely edge. Hurry, Daniel, I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm on my way. I hung up, grabbed my coat, and shoved my police badge into the inner pocket. A slow burning fury coiled deep in my chest. If this was someone's dirty trick, they were going to pay. The door slammed shut behind me. Today, I was going to get to the bottom of this. It took me only 15 minutes to race my car to Michael's house. My hands clenched tightly around the steering wheel, rage burning in my chest. The car sped through the streets, tires gripping the damp pavement. My ears rang, leaving only the roar of the engine and the frantic pounding of my heart. The city blurred past like a rushing current, but my mind focused on one thing. Karen. I didn't know what she was up to, but if it involved Michael, I wouldn't let it slide. The moment I pulled up in front of the house, I saw a sight that made my blood turn to ice. Karen stood there, arms crossed, with a triumphant look on her face so infuriating that I wanted to wipe it away immediately. Next to her were two men dressed in dark blue police uniforms, wearing badges. But something wasn't right. Years of experience in the field kicked in, and I immediately noticed the inconsistencies. Their uniforms were slightly loose, their badges were out of place, and their belts were missing standard police equipment. A real officer would never step out on duty looking so sloppy. I quickly pulled over and grabbed my phone. The first call I made was to Lieutenant Harris. The line barely rang twice before his voice came through. Yes, sir. I didn't waste time. I need backup at 237 Hillside Drive. I suspect we have police impersonators. Send a response team immediately. Harris answered firmly, without hesitation. Understood. I'll be there in 3 minutes. 3 patrol cars will arrive within 5. Hurry. I hung up, slipped the phone into my pocket, and took a deep breath. The front door creaked open slightly. Michael stood just behind it, only revealing a sliver of himself, his eyes filled with worry. I stepped out of the car, closing the door deliberately. Each step I took crunched against the gravel as I approached them. What the hell is going on here? My voice was cold as steel. Karen lifted her chin slightly, a glint of satisfaction in her eyes as if she had been waiting for this moment. Who are you? Michael is a corrupt man, and today he will pay for his crimes. I narrowed my eyes, my jaw tightening. What the hell are you talking about? She shrugged theatrically, her tone dripping with drama. These 2 officers are here to arrest him. It's time for the criminal to face justice. I turned my gaze to the 2 men. One stood with his arms crossed, trying to appear professional but failing to keep his stance steady. The other flicked his eyes toward me before quickly looking away, as if trying to avoid scrutiny. Who are you 2? I asked, my voice slow but sharp. The man on the left curled his lips into a smirk, attempting to regain control. We're on duty. This is an emergency arrest warrant. Your brother has to come with us right now. I crossed my arms, locking eyes with him. Where's the warrant? The man on the right stiffened. The one on the left raised an eyebrow, but made no move to pull out any paperwork. Karen interjected, her impatience showing, her voice still full of provocation. This is an emergency arrest. No warrant is needed. I gritted my teeth, feeling every nerve in my head tighten like a wire about to snap. They were lying. That much was clear. Stay calm, Daniel. Don't fall into their trap. Play by your own rules. I feigned compliance, nodding slightly as I pulled out my phone. All right, let me verify it in the system. My fingers moved swiftly across the screen. The police department's internal database showed no investigation related to Michael, no arrest warrant, and most importantly, these 2 men were not listed as officers in the city's force. I looked up, my gaze sharp as a blade. Who authorized this arrest? The man on the left started to sweat. The one on the right stammered. We don't need authorization. Karen snapped in frustration. Who the hell do you think you are? What gives you the right to question us? A slow smirk crept onto my lips as I slid my hand into my coat pocket and pulled out something small, but carrying the weight of 1,000 pounds. A gleaming badge, catching the light. Daniel Thompson, Chicago Police Chief. The atmosphere froze. The 2 fake cops stood paralyzed, eyes wide as if they had just seen the devil himself. Their faces turned pale, beads of sweat forming on their foreheads. One of them swallowed dryly, lips trembling as if trying to say something, but no words came out. Karen, the woman who once exuded an overwhelming confidence, was now nothing but an empty shell. Her eyes were wide open, filled with sheer terror. Her lips moved soundlessly, as if trying to deny the reality before her. One of the impostors gulped audibly, then muttered in a panic-stricken whisper. Damn it. I stepped forward slowly, arms crossed, a faint smirk playing on my lips. Arresting someone without a warrant, impersonating officers, and trying to pull a stunt right in front of the police chief. I tilted my head slightly, my sharp gaze slicing through them. I don't think you could have been any dumber. Karen snapped out of her shock. Her face twisted with panic, and suddenly she shrieked at the top of her lungs. Don't just stand there. Arrest him. Now. But no one moved. The 2 fake cops remained rooted to the ground as if nailed in place. A suffocating silence filled the room, broken only by Karen's desperate, ragged breathing. Calmly, I pulled out a pair of handcuffs, raising them for all to see, my piercing gaze locking onto them. Oh, I was just about to do that. Like cornered animals, the 2 imposters suddenly bolted in opposite directions, trying to escape. The moment they moved, my smirk widened. Going somewhere, a short whistle escaped my lips, the signal my team had been waiting for. Suddenly, the headlights of police vehicles blazed to life, flooding the imposters' faces with blinding light, making them recoil in shock. The sharp clatter of metal filled the air as my officers drew their weapons in unison, aiming straight at the targets. Police, everyone freeze. Get on your knees now. From the shadows around the house, figures emerged, 4 officers at the front door, 2 covering the back exit, 3 blocking the side passage. I had planned this from the start. There were only 3 possible exits in this house. And now, every single one was sealed shut. One of the imposters, panicked beyond reason, whirled around and lunged for the window. Bang! A rubber bullet whizzed through the air, slamming into the edge of the window frame. He stumbled to a stop, face drained of color. Karen staggered backward, as if trying to disappear. Her face was ashen, her wild eyes darting around the room, searching desperately for salvation. No, this is a mistake. They're real cops, she shrieked, her voice high-pitched and laced with despair. I crossed my arms, my expression ice cold. Real cops don't work with imposters. One by one, I snapped the handcuffs onto them. The 2 fake officers lowered their heads in silence, already accepting their fate. But Karen was different. She fought back viciously, screaming until her voice turned hoarse, struggling with all her might to break free from the cuffs. Let me go. You have no right. I will sue you. You will regret this. I calmly placed a hand on her handcuffs, tilted my head slightly, and spoke slowly, but with undeniable authority. Go ahead and try. But this time, the law will truly decide your fate. The police car blared its siren as it rolled away from the scene, taking Karen and her lackeys with it. I stood there, arms crossed, watching as her figure gradually disappeared inside the vehicle. A sense of relief spread through me. A battle had ended, but I knew this was far from over. Beside me, my brother let out a deep breath, but his eyes still held traces of tension. I patted his shoulder, my voice calm but firm. This is just the beginning. She still has to face many more charges. Don't forget, people like her never commit just one crime. My brother let out a small chuckle, a mix of relief and bitterness. Good thing I had you, otherwise, I don't know what would have happened to me. I glanced at him, slipping my hands into my pockets, curiosity in my voice. So when exactly did she start messing with you? I know she's unpleasant, but why target you specifically? My brother sighed, his expression hardening as he recalled the past. Karen, acting as the president of the Homeowners Association, Joey, abused her power. She thought she was the queen of this neighborhood, making up absurd rules and forcing everyone to follow them. I raised an eyebrow, signaling for him to continue. For example, he scoffed, holding up a finger. She fined me $200 just because I planted the wrong type of flowers in my yard. And by wrong, I mean they weren't on the list of plants she personally liked. I frowned, waiting for him to go on. Oh, it gets worse. I got a warning because my car wasn't parked at the perfect 90-degree angle according to some arbitrary rule she made up. And once, she even sent me a citation for hanging my laundry outside, claiming it ruined the aesthetic of the neighborhood. I let out a laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculously absurd. She really has issues. My brother nodded, his voice still tinged with frustration. I ignored those rules because they were just too unreasonable. But Karen doesn't take defiance lightly. I refused to pay those ridiculous fines and openly called her out in front of the neighbors. That's when she started to despise me and tried everything she could to bring me down. He turned to me, his voice filled with frustration. You know what? She even sent an anonymous complaint accusing me of illegal construction for putting up a wooden fence in my yard, while she had the exact same kind of fence herself. I shook my head, looking into the distance where the police car had just vanished. Karen had always been that kind of person, obsessed with power, control, and crushing anyone who dared to oppose her. But this time, she had gone too far. A month later, Karen's name was all over the local news. Her trial was held publicly, drawing a large crowd, including many neighbors who had once been her victims. Karen faced a slew of charges, including abuse of power, financial fraud, embezzlement of the neighborhood fund, and issuing threats. The evidence was undeniable: shady financial records, absurd fines she had imposed on residents, and even audio recordings of her threatening those who dared to challenge her. Michael and I attended the trial, sitting alongside neighbors who had suffered under her rule. When the judge announced her sentence, 10 years in prison and tens of thousands of dollars in restitution, a wave of applause rippled through the courtroom. I glanced at Karen. She was trying to maintain her composure, but her eyes betrayed her despair. Gone was the arrogance. Gone was the power she had wielded over others. I leaned over and murmured to Michael, "She played her cards wrong." My brother nodded, a satisfied smile on his face. After Karen was taken away, Michael's neighborhood felt like it had been given new life. The ridiculous rules were abolished, and no one had to live in constant fear of Karen's harassment anymore. A community meeting was held, and this time, the residents worked together to establish fair and reasonable guidelines. No more dictatorship. Michael finally got to enjoy his home without interference. He stood on his porch, smiling as he watched the neighborhood come back to life, children laughing, gardens blooming without the threat of fines. "Peace at last," he said, letting out a relieved sigh. I nodded, feeling satisfied. "So, no more Karen haunting your neighborhood." Michael chuckled, giving me a pat on the back. "And I can finally park my car and plant my flowers without worrying about getting fined." In the end, I returned to my own life, work, relationships, and new challenges. The battle with Karen was over, but I knew there would always be people like her in this world, those who exploit power for their own gain. But I also knew that as long as there were people willing to stand up for justice, every tyrant would eventually face their reckoning. Smirking, I squinted up at the clear blue sky before turning down the familiar path, ready for whatever came next. What do you think of the story? Leave a comment, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to this channel for more stories to come.